All right. Good morning. Good morning. Can y'all hear me okay? We've got few people in the live chat. Let me hit record for all the bots that are in the group. Zoom chats are now bot chats. All right. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom.
What's up,
And
Jim?
what's up, man? How we
How's it
doing?
going? Good, man. How you doing?
Good, brother. Nice to see you, man. How's
Good to
life?
see you. Good. Just, living life down here in Florida.
Rocking and
Uh,
rolling. I like it.
trying, trying to keep working.
I feel that. All right. Well, Andrew, thank you for being here. Tim, Karen, we got two Andrews, Nick, David, Olga, Tyler. I'm excited today. This is something I'm very passionate about. This is something that comes dear and near from the heart. Some of you I have a relationship with, and we've explored several of these opportunities probably regarding human connection. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this and this topic is because for a long time I did it the wrong way. I built connections specifically to just bring in revenues. And part of my growth, part of my learning, um, it put me in a position to be extremely transactional. And I went from a rise of doing a ton of business and a ton of sales to a stagnant drop because it was transactional and it was for the one and only sale, not necessarily the lifetime of a customer. And as I navigate our local community here in Nashville, I speak all over the place, whether it's the West Coast, Florida, um, up north, up in Boston, New York. I always run into the same concept of, hey, I want to build relationships and I want to network so I can sell my product and sell my service. And that is 100% part of that. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. But the reason why I wanted to do this session and the reason why I'm so passionate about human connection is because what I'm realizing and seeing is more and more people are utilizing human connection strictly for sales. They're succeeding and then failing in the long term due to not having lifetime customer value, or they're failing up front and they're not moving and they're stuck and they are seeking a new way. Or there's the third person, which is someone who's doing sales, is successful, has repeat clients, but doesn't like the integrity of how they communicate, the integrity of what they're actually selling and how they're positioning the product or service. And they don't actually have human connection. They don't actually have relationships. It's really just business driven and they're finding themselves lonely or they're finding themselves like something's missing in life. There's more to life. There's more to my business. There's more to my role. There's more to this company. And I believe a lot of people are in the right seat, but they're just not navigating those situations in a way that feels good. So if you're any of these three people, if you see the value in human connection and relationships, if you're, succeeding, but you're feeling transactional, if you're feeling like it's sticky and icky, and your networking is really just not real and raw and honest, then you're in the right seat today. So before we jump in, I want to talk. Thank you, Gene, for tossing that in the chat. I wanted to just take a step back and talk a little bit about human connection and what it means. Um, a lot of the stuff that I've been building and researching and doing, a lot of people label it as networking. And I really want to distinguish between the two terms because I think there's two different motives, there's two different levels of inspiration, and there's two different goals. Human connection is when two or more people choose to engage in a vulnerable interaction where the person seems heard, seen, they feel known, and they feel valued, right? They feel important. Well, if you read that definition again, and I would highly recommend you write this definition down and put it on a notebook or, toss it in your phone or take a photo, put it as your background. But as you can see, as you read this definition of human connection, it's quite different than networking. I would even push you to say it's drastically different than networking. Because when we're networking, we have a goal to discover if you can buy my product, whether you say you're going to buy it, whether you say you agree with it, whether it seems like a good fit. We're making an assumption, trying to sell you something. And that's the only reason for the connection. Now, when we network, I'm not saying networking is bad, but when we network, we often find friends, we find deeper connection in relationships, but there's something that you've done in that conversation. There's a way you've shown up. There's something that has occurred in how you presented yourself to cross that barrier and create that human connection. And if you are networking and you're in those settings and it's a networking event, these are great places to practice human connection because you are going to be the oddball in the group. You are going to be the unique person. You're going to have a deep conversation that relates to connection, or guess what? It doesn't relate to any connection. That's the other piece of this. When in business, if we go into an event, when go into a meetup, where we're navigating a conversation in a group, digitally, text, whatever, we go into those situations, and whether there's a human connection or not with the person, we still try to sell them the product or service. We still try to bring it back to business, whether they've told us signs that they want it or they told us signs that they didn't want it. And that's really where this distinction comes into play of human connection compared to networking. We're both utilizing these strategies to build a relationship to enhance the offering or the opportunity to sell them a product or service. But how we go about it and the ethics that we have around it is what we're going to dive into today. And in that conversation, how can we make sure that we're hearing what that person's saying, we're interacting, we're listening, actively listening, not just hearing. And then also we've engaged in that connection so that person feels heard, they feel seen, known, and valued. And if you look at this definition, the reason why I love this definition so much and why I think it's so different than just networking or building a connection, the human connection thrives when those two people choose to engage in a vulnerable interaction. So let's dive into what a vulnerable action may look like, and let's start navigating the opportunity of how you can expand your reach. So the first topic for the module today that I had sent out in the email and posted regarding human connection is understanding how to diversify your targets. This is pretty simple, basic stuff, right? What I'm going to tell you in the next minute or two is not going to blow your mind. This is not why you're here. This is the base to transition into how to leverage human connection to grow your business and build your revenues. So diversifying your target, right? Pretty standard. I categorize this in 3 different ways. Your client, the person who you're trying to build a relationship with and have human connection in order to sell a product or service or to have fit in your life, whether it's business or personal, but to have a true connection, you want to not only target your industry or your specific avatar client, but you want to build relationships with adjacent industries. You've probably all heard this, right? So when you diversify your target, and I'll give you an example, if I'm a realtor and I'm looking to pick up new clients, and instead of going to a networking event every month where I know the same people are going to be there. Well, maybe I want to diversify my target and go to a networking event that is in an industry adjacent to real estate. Maybe that's insurance. Maybe that's interior design. Maybe that's construction. Maybe that's all these other things that are close to my industry, but not necessarily in my industry. Makes makes sense, right? Lenders, mortgage brokers, they'll go to financial planners, right? They're adjacent to the industry, but they probably share common or they share common characteristics of their potential avatar client. You also want to diversify your targets by going to the opposite of your industry. So think of it as a spectrum, right? Say you're in web development and this is your company and it's over here. Well, why don't you go to local services, maybe a landscaping company, and start networking with those type of people? The reason why I say opposite isn't necessarily you need to go to the opposite of your industry, but I want to push you to walk down the line further as you separate from the commonalities of your industry and another, because this is actually the best way to diversify. Um, the reason why I say that is because it reduces the factor to build human connection and the anxiety around that. So, for instance, if I'm a web developer and I'm going to a local services company, someone who cleans gutters, and we're talking about business, I'm not trying to sell them my services. I'm not telling them that they need a website. I didn't even look at their website. I'm just looking to build a human connection around some similarity, someone that's in business and I have a business. Maybe it's around the same revenues, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm doing 10 million a year, maybe they're doing 500,000. But engage in those conversations, because in those opposite industries on the end of the spectrum, you're going to start to learn different types of avatar people that you can potentially work with, potentially partner with, and potentially create a human connection, which will then build your base of people that you're connected with, in turn to get referrals and grow your business. Last time I talked about this one, I was a guest on a podcast, and the podcast host was like, "That makes no sense." Called me right out, and I loved it. Right, like this is how the world should be in Jim Morris's opinion. Like, let's engage, let's have a conversation. They said, "Well, Jim, my company, you know, does marketing, and and every company needs marketing. Why would I go talk to a company that's on the opposite spectrum of my business, meaning they sell something different, they do something different, whatever?" Well, the cool part about that conversation was, in that moment, that person immediately thought about the revenue and they didn't think about the human connection. So that was actually a great example, because the whole point of this is to build the connection with relatability and to navigate that and expand your opportunity, expand your horizon, expand the conversations you're having outside of your industry, and to navigate those relationships for those future referrals. That person followed up with me, said they navigated this game plan, and they had two meetings, because one of the company's business partner also owned another company, and they were in that need of that service at that time. Right? Who knows what's going to happen? But the reason why I share that story is because we want to go into it for human connection and building relationships. And if that connection aligns, then we navigate to the next step of understanding if they could use our product or service, if we could actually serve them, if it aligns with them, and if it's beneficial for them and where they're trying to go, what they're trying to do. The third is diversifying your target by being socially different. And what I mean by that is going and connecting with people who don't necessarily align with your initial or immediate community or your beliefs. So, what do I mean by that? So, if you're, um, say that you are a local service, you're a landscaping company, and you find yourself in that industry, going to meetups, doing whatever, with industry folks, people that are aligned. try going to a tech meeting. Try going to a technology or a startup or an event or a pitch fest or something unique and different, right? Because when you put yourself in a different atmosphere socially, you learn different lingo. You can find human connection based on how you converse and develop that relationship with people. So, for instance, and this is going to pull us right into the next section. Um, but before I do that and give this example about socially different, let's just recap these three diversifying opportunities for your targets. Industry adjacent. So not your industry, but something that relates to it or similar. Industry opposite, something on the other side of the spectrum. So it removes any anticipation or want or need to directly try to sell them something, right? We're just trying to build human connection first. And then socially different, different groups, different people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, life experiences. You want to diversify where you are, how you're showing up, and who you do it with. Um, Now, the story that I was going to tell you about being socially different relates into our next topic about engaging relationships strategically. So, when I say strategically, what I mean is cotton candy conversations. Some people have heard me talk about cotton candy conversations, some people haven't. Very simple concept. A cotton candy conversation is just all the fluff. It's the normal, hey, what's up? How are you? What do you do? I do this. Cool. Nice. Where do you go on vacation? Blah, 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 blah. Cool. Do you want to buy my services? Let's grab coffee next week. Let's grab a cocktail. It's cotton candy, right? You've done it. I've done it. I still do it today, even though I talk about it and I teach it. It's easy. It's comfortable. It's normal. You've probably done it in the last week, multiple times, maybe. Depends on how much you network, how much you get on the phones, how much you text, how much you voice memo, how much you're out building human connection to sell your product or service. But my point here is to remind you that it's comfortable and it's easy and everybody's doing it. And that's exactly why we can't and we should not want to have cotton candy conversations, because ultimately, if you're seeking human connection, if you're seeking a relationship with someone to understand if your product or service aligns with them, then we should not be having surface level conversations, right? If you really care, if you have compassion, if you have curiosity, and you're trying to create a human connection, then why wouldn't you want to go deep? So my goal is to push you to not have cotton candy conversations. And the number one thing where we can ask someone a question or navigate through that conversation is when we start talking about our values, we start asking questions around their beliefs, we start talking or asking questions around experiences. So I'm going to say those three back to you again, because I would recommend that you write these down when you're going into a networking event, when you're showing up somewhere, when you're on a podcast, when you're speaking, whatever you're doing for visibility to meet people and create human connection. I would advise you to engage with that person around their values, and write this down, their values, their beliefs, and their experiences. Now, values, beliefs, and experiences can all be figured out and defined by asking someone what their dreams are. Now, that can be awkward. You just met this person, you know their name. You probably, based on 76% from a study, you probably don't remember their name when they introduce their name. How many people have done that? A lot. Because we're not actively listening, right? And I talked about that at our last live event in Nashville. We're not actively listening. We're thinking about how we're going to introduce ourselves, right? So, in those cotton candy conversations, we want to build a relationship and we ultimately want to ask someone, what's the one big thing you're working towards? What's your dream with your business, with your life? Those two questions will allow you to uncover what someone's values are, what someone's beliefs are, and what someone's experiences are. Because when you ask someone about their dreams, they're going to tell you what they want, what they're seeking, and where they want to go. And that follow up question can be why, or tell me more, or what happened that caused you to define this and seek this and look to develop this and look to build towards this and work towards this one big thing and follow your dreams. That will tell you what the experience is, right? Why is relationship so important to you, Jim? Well, I will tell a story about experiences with relationships, right? Going back to when I was a kid and growing up and within business and transitioning careers and financial ups and downs, right? Like that's life. But I will share those experiences on why my dream is to impact 1,100,100 business professionals to grow and develop around relationships. So engage relationships strategically when we're conversing and having conversations. Don't have cotton candy conversations. Dive deeper, understand people's dreams, understand the big thing they're working towards, and build that human connection before we even talk about our product or service, right? We're trying to have that level of alignment and that understanding before we just go right in and try to sell a product or a service. Does this make sense? Does anybody have any feedback? Let's take a temperature check real quick. Does anybody want to share anything or have any insights or feedback on what we've discussed so far? Not all at once. James Piva
Great.
House, loving it, Jim. Thank you, sir. Tell us what you
Yeah.
love in the chat, James. Tell us what resonates, brother. Pelfrey, how are you, brother?
Good. Yeah.
Any temperature check
Yeah. I was gonna say,
insights?
I like this topic because so much of my time running my business is just spent just digging in the day to day of my industry. And it's so nice to be able to just have like a real conversation with another entrepreneur. Like the last time I came and you and I had lunch in Nashville, we sat for like 2 hours at this food hall just talking about life, and like it would, I mean, I remember the conversation. You have a lot of these just trash conversations with people, these cotton candy conversations like you're talking about. And I remember our conversation and because it was real, and so um, I don't know, man. I just think it's they give a lot of real valid points, and I just really enjoy every time I get to have a conversation with somebody about like their life outside of business. Because at the end of the day, we are just all people. We have real stuff going on, and like the business is if people like you, they're going to do business with you, and that's kind of what it boils down to for me.
You just hit such a great point, Pelfrey. Like, you know, and in my notes, this is how I would have started this, and I just was so excited today and I skipped over it. But like something that I've commonly been saying is humanity is the only thing we have in common, right? Like what you just said, like we're all humans,
Yeah,
like we're all navigating this thing together, and humanity is the one thing we have in common, and we forget that we're humans, right? I was on a training with a very, very, influential person. And when I say influential, I say not influencer. This person isn't million followers on Instagram. When I say influential, I mean has created a lot of content, shows up, New York Times bestseller, is a professor at Vanderbilt, right? Like creates content, shows up, and does it. And they're releasing a leadership program that I'll incorporate into my business because I just love the content and I went through it and I'm just a fan of it, right? And I want to help people with it. I think it's great. But we got on that call and it was right into business. This. What do you think about this module? What do you think about this? Have questions around selling it. What do you think of this exercise? Blah, 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 blah. And, in that moment, someone that is just so highly reputable and that I love and I align with, they completely skipped over the human connection factor. And what I did was I said, hey, real quick before we jump into it, can we just, last time we got together, it was in person, it was about a month ago. Like, how's everybody doing? Like, I haven't seen you. Like, how's life? What's up? And the facilitator stopped and said, you know what, Jim, thank you for slowing this down a little bit. You're right. We haven't seen each other. And that just allowed human connection to occur and bring everybody back to we're human and we're not just going to run through this module. Right. And it's just such a important lesson, and we run so fast, there's so many distractions, there's so many things to do. There's a new social media platform. Reels are popular, now they're not. Now you should post, now you should do this, now you shouldn't do it at this time, you should release your YouTube videos at Sunday at 7 a.m. Right? We've got all these distractions on our platforms, on our laptops, in our face. We're on Zooms, we're doing things digitally. We don't have as much human face-to-face connection, so the energy transfer is reduced. You can't pick up the body language as well. Like right now, I'm moving my hands and you can't even see my hands on the screen, right? Like I've got to awkwardly put them up here to navigate my conversation of how I would typically talk if we're in person, right? You can't feel my energy. You can't feel my movements. So more than ever, we need to revert back to this human connection piece. And we need to remember that everybody is human, and let's treat people like people, because humanity is the only common thread in our lives. So thank you for sharing that, Andrew. You got me fired up, man. Like you
Yeah,
hit such a
man.
good point.
Thanks.
um, Tyler, you've got your hand up. You want to share something, brother, before we keep rocking and rolling?
Yeah, I just wanted to say kind of something that I pulled from the conversation is you may not remember their name, their occupation, whatever, but people remember how you make them feel. And so I think that's the importance of asking them a deep question like that. What's your dreams? Why are you doing it? Because you asking about what's important to them makes them feel good. Um, and because they're genuinely curious about it, it's very selfless, and I think people can sense that. I know when I have conversations with you or with other people that genuinely are curious about who I am and why I do what I do, I feel a lot better and I want to go talk to them more. You should always leave the conversation wanting more. It should never just kind of die out. And so that's just kind of something that I pulled.
Well, I think it makes you feel heard and seen and important, that I care, right? And I have compassion, and I'm going to ask you the hard, difficult questions. And when you get good at asking those questions and you truly are compassionate and you truly care about someone, it allows that human connection piece to just accelerate at such a faster pace, right? And in turn, what I've realized when I first started doing this and asking and going to networking events and saying, hold on, let me slow down and let me look for human connection opportunity rather than networking and dive into some of these things, what I started to realize was I didn't have my dreams defined, right? Like when I started asking people, I'm like, oh shit, I like I'm kind of half-assing my dreams. Like I need to write this down. I need to be more clear, because if I'm gonna ask people about their dreams, they're gonna ask me about mine. Right? So there's some self-preservation there where it's like, hey, if I'm going to go out and do this and build human connection, well, I've got to work on my stuff too. Right? And I've got to spend time on my dreams. And as you build these connections and as you ask these questions and you go deep with people, you're going to uncover things that you align with and you don't align with. Right? I asked someone, and I won't share their name if they're on this Zoom. I apologize, but this is a good example. I asked someone, "What's your dream of building this group?" It was we were going to build a group for the Latin community here in Nashville, and I said, "What's your dream around this? Like, why do you want to do this?" And his answer was to make money. Well, that's not a partnership or collaboration that I'm going to do, right? I don't want to do that for money. I want to do it because I have some resources to where we can throw events and impact this local community and do it in Spanish. My friend's a professional translator. I'm like, let's do this thing, right? But in that conversation about what's your dream for this project or where do you see this going, I learned that there was an alignment and there wasn't a good partnership opportunity, right? Now, at that time, they were looking to seek and buy and purchase a home as well. And I was selling real estate. So at that time, I told them I was full of clients because I knew if it was all about everything was all about money, then that was probably not good alignment for me as a realtor client, right? Having them as my client. These are the hard things we do, but this is the other side of why we ask the questions, so we don't get ourselves into sticky situations. We don't get ourselves into sticky partnerships or sticky clients that we know are going to become a potential future problem based on who they are, based on how they show up, based on what their dreams are, based on what's important to them, based on why they're doing what they do, right? And once we start to have those deep conversations, and you're putting yourself in human connection opportunities, not networking opportunities, you start to stand out. And I don't know about you, but how I've made a career and how I've built relationships and how I've gotten opportunities and how I've gotten referrals and recommendations and has been through building those deep relationships and standing out. Right. I spoke at an event. I was telling everybody that, you've got enough contacts in your phone to make $1 million this year. You don't need to go bang out 500 more calls. You need to go scroll through your text messages. I call it the Five Alive program. Pull up your texts, right? Pull up your phone, go to your texts, hit the scroll button 5 times. So you go back in your texts, land on one person, read the top 5 text messages above and the top 5 text messages below, and go create a relationship and make it alive again. If you do that twice a week, you can turn old relationships into alive relationships. You can turn old friendships. You can turn old, relationships with family. You can spark up a new referral partner. You can follow up with a client that you lost business and you're just checking in. Hey, I heard you were interested in potentially buying a house. Did you ever do that? Right? You have these opportunities that are in front of you. We don't necessarily need to go get more and more and more. But here's the thing. To build human connection, we need to be unique and stand out. So when you go do that Five Alive program, you don't just go down to that person and say, hey, what's up? How are you? I haven't talked to you in a while. Right? Put some effort behind it. Put some energy behind it. Go look up their Facebook. Go see what's going on in their life. Go congratulate them. Go console them. Be compassionate. Something bad just happened. Their dog just died. Right? Like put some effort into the relationship and show that you care. And you run that program. You do that twice a week. I mean, I don't know how much money I pulled up out of the grave just by flicking through my damn phone. you know? Um, anyways, I don't want to go on a rant about the opportunities that sit in our phone today because I could do a whole webinar session about that. Um, but let's talk about maximizing your reach. And thank you for your feedback, Tyler. I appreciate that. Let's talk about maximizing your reach. So, how do you optimize your connectivity? How do you build something that is working for you, it's maximizing for you, and allows you to have control, allows you to put everything in the same house, have every relationship in one place? Guess what, guys? This is, and girls, this is a no-brainer. It's called a CRM. CRM. Now, you're like, Jim, what the hell am I doing on this webinar? You're sitting here talking about a CRM. I've been in business for 10 years. I did 15 million last year. You're an idiot. Well, here's the thing. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. 99% of the world uses it as customer management. We automatically cut out the R. We are managing prospects and potential clients and current clients in our CRM system today. And we've got a bunch of names in there that aren't clients that we're trying to turn into prospects. And we're emailing them through our sequences and our systems and our, monthly newsletters, and we're texting them every couple of weeks, and we're inviting them to events, and we're, doing all the things in our CRM, right? We're putting them on these drip campaigns, and we're sending out a survey maybe quarterly to clients, and, or asking, potential prospects, what they would seek if they were to work for us or work with us, right? We're doing all the things, but we're not actually managing a relationship. We're just seeking revenues, and we're seeking conversion and sales. The CRM is just a CM for 99% of people. And I can probably guess that almost everybody on here doesn't manage relationships with it. They manage prospects and customers. So the reason why I talk about maximizing your reach isn't to go and tell you, hey, go sign up for the best new CRM. It's got all these widgets, and your Google Calendar loads in, and an AI and creates these. No, dude, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, I don't care what system you have. I would recommend you have something, keep it in all in one place. And I think most of you do on this call as business professionals. But what I am saying is manage the relationship, build the human connection, use it as human connection opportunity. So what my recommendation for you to do is go redo your stages in your pipeline. Most people have prospect, lead, meeting, won or lost, right? Does anybody have any, can anybody just toss in the chat what your stages are in your CRM? Am I in line with you? You probably got a prospect or a call, and then you turn them into a lead, or maybe it's interested you use. What verbiage do you use in your pipeline in your CRM? I'm curious. Toss it in the chat for me, if you don't mind. But most of the time it's the same stuff, right? Well, what I'm pushing you to do is to rebuild your pipelines in different stages. So instead of prospect, how about that company or that person's name? And if you sell B2B, some people put the company, right? And then there's a contact, right? So if it's the company, you know the contact. So I'm going to go names here from a relationship standpoint. What if your first stage was, would you hang out with that person? What if your second stage was, do you know about their family? And do they know about yours? What if your third stage was, do you know what their personal and professional goals are? Then we put them into a prospect stage. Then we talk about business. Then we talk about, now they're in the lead stage. They're interested, whatever you call it. Then we do the meeting, Zoom, in person, whatever, proposal, pitch, whatever you call it. Then we win or lose the deal. Then, whether we win or lose, there's a follow-up related to the relationship. Not a follow-up to follow up in 6 months to ask them to buy something, but a follow-up in 60 days to ask how they are, how their life is, how their wife is, how their partner is, whatever. That's a customer relationship management program that utilizes the art of human connection, right? We're treating people like people. We're humanizing business. We're humanizing relationships. And in turn, what that does is it creates fluidity of a strong relationship and a bond. By raise of hands, would you rather sell your product or service to someone you bond with or someone that you don't know? Bond? Someone you don't know? Pretty straightforward, right? And Pelfrey's like, yeah, someone I don't know too. But the reality of it is guys, this and girls, this is simple stuff. We just don't spend time thinking about it. We don't spend time working on it. Right? Like, you all know what CRM stands for. Some people don't even know. And that's fine too. Right? When I was talking to someone after I talked about this at the event, they were like, what is CRM again? I don't even have one. They're doing 600,000 in revenue. They don't have CRM. I'm like, go buy one. Let's turn that into 1.2 next year, right? But do it to build the relationship, not just sell the service or product. All right. I know we're running up on time here. We've got about 5 more minutes. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and I'll skip word of mouth. That's pretty straightforward. But I want to talk about momentum and the chessboard game of life. So if you don't know what the law of momentum is, just Google it. John Maxwell breaks it down into, I think, 10 or 11 laws. But ultimately, ultimately, the law of momentum begins with the leader, and you are the leader, right? You're leading this relationship. You're leading human connection. So the reason why I want to talk about that and dive into the chessboard game of life is because you've got to own human connection. You're the leader in the relationship. And this is the number one problem when it comes to human connection is we get tied up in the feelings. Like, if you want to build a connection with someone because you admire them, if you want to build a connection with someone because you believe that your core values align, if you want to build a connection with someone because you like their brand, you like how they show up, who they are, if you want to build a connection with someone because they're the perfect avatar for your business and you know they do 2 million in revenue and that 2 million can slide over into your company tomorrow by building this relationship, you need to take control of the relationship. You need to own the responsibility of human connection. I would write this down. You need to own the responsibility of human connection. You text someone, you voice memo someone, you video message someone, you call someone, you send them an email, right? This is all outbound marketing, and they don't respond or they don't get back to you. What do we typically do? Start to create an emotion and our feeling around that. We feel a little bit humiliated because you should respond to me. We get frustrated because we may have wanted to connect with that person faster than they could or be available to connect with us. And we start to create this emotion that they should be reaching back to me. They should be responding back to me. I've hit them up. I've done this. I've done that. Blah, 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 blah. We need to just take the responsibility that it's up to us to create the human connection, and we need to keep pushing forward. We need to create a strategic plan. We need to continue to follow up. And when that person says, I don't want to connect with you, it's not sales because we're not pitching them something. Right? So the rejection, and this is the number one thing where I think it pivots in people's brain, it transitions in people's brain, is you're not trying to sell them anything by reaching out. You're trying to build a connection. So when they say, oh, I'm not interested for your product or service, you're not even trying to sell them a product or service. That's an easy conversation. That's an easy response. This isn't your 16th time you're following up on a lead. This could be your 16th time you're trying to build a relationship with someone you think you admire, someone you believe would be a good friend, someone you would believe would be a good partner, good business relationship, and in turn would be good to do business with. That reduces the stress of the follow-up, right? We live in this culture of grind, 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 calls, 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 text, text, text. Just pick up the phone. I lost this one. Go to the next one. I'm one closer. I believe in that, but I believe you can do it with a strategy, and you can do it in a way where you own the responsibility. It's not just getting to that 16th follow-up before some guru told you to throw them in the back of the leads pile, right? Leave them in that first stage of your CRM. Do you have a relationship with them? Do you want to connect with them? Whatever your stages are that you build. So the law of momentum, you being the leader, take control of human connection and who you're looking to connect with, and then roll that momentum into the chessboard game of life. So what I talk about the chessboard because I think it's strategic in a small number of moves, but are powerful, right? Where in chess, you're making a strategic play and you're making a couple moves that could change the game for you, a couple moves that could set you up to win. And it's really based on strategy. So the chessboard game of life related to human connection, how can you create your top 5 relationships and then your next 5 and pour into 10 people for the rest of the year? I think we have 250 something days left in the year. Top 5 relationships and then your next 5. 10 people. Play chess, be strategic. Spend time on who these people are. Spend time on identifying who they are. Spend time on, did they win recently? Did they lose? How can you show up and be empathetic? How can you be supportive? Right? Brad Lee talks about asking someone how to be valuable isn't actually valuable if you haven't done any research to navigate that conversation. So what I mean by that is if I went up to Andrew and said, "Hey Andrew, how can I be of value to you?" Now Andrew has to do work and think about how you can help him. If I went up to Andrew and said, "Hey man, I just saw that you're growing and you're moving from Florida up to North Carolina in your business, and I want to be valuable. I know 2 people in North Carolina. Would that make sense to connect you and help you?" Much different conversation. Andrew's going to be like, "Yeah, dude, let's connect. Let's jump on a call. You got 2 people you can connect me with in a new market." Boom, you just got a 10-minute call. Maybe that 10-minute call turns to 15 to 30 to 45, right? Andrew was talking earlier. We had an hour lunch. We sat down for 2 hours, had an amazing conversation, right? Be strategic in your chess moves related to human connection. Be strategic in your chess moves related to what relationship you're seeking to build with someone. And don't go for these massive numbers, but be strategic and be aligned and be focused. And most importantly, be intentional with your top 5. And if these are relationships that can change the landscape for you, the trajectory of your business, the trajectory of your life, the trajectory of your partner's life, business partner, your wife, spouse, husband, kids, like pick these top 5 relationships that will change the game and go build a strategy around them and be human and not talk about business until you build the relationship. And it's hard because when you're talking and you're navigating and human connection occurs and you're talking about dreams and business and big things and how you're going to change the world and what do you feel like your purpose is, or depending on how deep you get, business is going to come up. And you know that person can buy your services because you've done the research. They're probably using a competitor, or someone that works for the company and they have a big budget for this, or you heard otherwise that they weren't happy with their current services or they're going out to do a proposal, whatever, right? But by understanding and building that connection, business is going to come up, but you can't jump on that opportunity if you're trying to build a human connection. Because if you jump on that opportunity and you start selling and you start pitching and it's the first or second time you hung out with someone and you spent time and you truly are seeking human connection, then you're going to come off as phony fake. And the bullshit meter is gonna tick, tick, tick and keep going off because you started with the right approach and you allowed a small window of opportunity to fill your bank account, and you went to pitch and went to sell. That's the hardest part in this, because you got to remember that it's about the connection. And if you don't know the person, haven't built rapport, and I would use the word bond. Rapport is surface level. Rapport is like using the word networking for me, where human connection relates to bonding. Like, how do you actually bond? You know, Tyler, you and I, like, you smoke cigars, I smoke cigars. We've smoked a cigar, right? We talked about that. We met up, we bonded during that conversation, right? There was relatability, there was an experience. We were in person, there was high energy. We talked business, but we both left there without you trying to sell me something and me trying to sell you something. I think I mentioned a program I was starting, but it was like that was it, right? Well, that was human connection. If Tyler tried to sell me on something, I wouldn't have bought it. That's not what I was seeking, right? I just wanted to hang out with them. We haven't hung out in a while. There's different ways to go about this in these situations, but I would advise you to play chess and pick 5 people that will change your life, your trajectory, your business, and to create strategic plans around that. In our mastermind group, we just ended this cohort, and the last meeting is with me. And of course, I'll ask what your opinion was, what you liked, what you didn't like, right? I need that feedback. I'm always innovative and looking to grow. But most importantly, in that last session, we're creating a strategic plan for their top one relationship they're looking to navigate, build, and create. And we're creating that strategic plan based on research around that person, based on where there's alignment and relatability, and how we can do that strategically for that specific case example. So I advise you to do something similar, and really spend time on this. And then also, too, if you're crazy like me, you can track this stuff, especially if you are using a CRM. So, you really want to know what's working. And if your diversification, remember we talked about diversification, if your diversification is actually showing up the way it should. Meaning, if you go to the tech event, but you're not in tech, was there a good human connection there? And should you go back? Or should you explore other events or other networking or other opportunities within that industry or other businesses or companies? Was that fruitful to you? So I would advise you to track where you're going and how you're showing up in those relationships. And the easy way that I do it is I throw a tag on my CRM and I run a report. Let the computer do the work, right? If I follow up with someone, and I'm looking to build that connection, and we're having a conversation, and it's going, and I tag that I went to a networking live event, well, then I'll run a report based on the stage that person's in and based on that tag, and I'll look every month to see what suited me well from a human connection standpoint. And things change, right? There's a group here in town in Nashville that was awesome for me, and the group changed, and it was terrible. Terrible meaning human connection. I'm not even talking about money. The people there sucked. And I say sucked because I'm being honest, real, and raw. They just wanted to sell me life insurance. I mean, a realtor tried to sell me real estate. I sell real estate, right? Like, and that's why I say, because it was just the leadership pushed it to anybody who comes in, go sell them your product, go pitch, 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 pitch. And I don't like that. That's not who I am. That's not what I want. I'd rather hang out with you, become friends, and then do business, even if you are the best or you aren't the best in the industry, right? Because our relationship allows us to do more and go farther and do bigger things than just that service that you're providing in that time today. So, I know we're over time, and 10 minutes over. I try to stay on time. That didn't happen today. Sorry. I get excited about this concept, as you can see. Any questions? We'll do a quick Q&A for 5 minutes, or if anybody wants to share anything. Before we do that Q&A, if y'all are in Nashville next Tuesday, come hang out. Got a live event. I'll throw my cell phone number in this chat. Shoot me a text if you want to come. I'll give you a free ticket. If you're someone who showed up on this call today because you value relationships, Gene, can you drop in the link to the event so people can check it out? Actually, see if they want to come. Um, but if you value relationships and you spent time out of your morning today to get on this call and to learn to build the right relationships to increase your revenues, then you're someone that I want at our live event. You're someone that cares about people, they care about human connection, and we've got an amazing community here. So this isn't me selling you anything at the end of a free webinar. It's not how I roll. This is me inviting you into my community that I've worked hard to build, which in turn is not actually my community, it's our community. It's the impact effect community. We're flying in Janine Driver next week from DC, body language expert. She's coming back to speak with us. We've got Lauren Lowry, Channel 4 news anchor, award-winning journalist here in Nashville, sharing about interviewing and being interviewed. So it'll be a really cool concept. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about relationships. We'll have lunch. We'll have it all. We usually have 50, 60 people. So I'm hoping to see you all there. The link's in the chat to check it out. Shoot me a text if you want a free ticket. I'm happy to comp your ticket and get some great people in the room. That being said, let's chat. We got a couple minutes. What's your feedback? Has this resonated? Sally, Sam, Stephanie, anything that sounded good, or Tim, Karen, anybody that disagreed with anything that we'd like to discuss or share insights? I'm an open book. I would love to hear your experiences, especially if there's opposing opinions. This is how we learn. This is how we share. This is how we build human connection.
Hey, Jim, I had a question. I was popped it in there about you're talking about aligning with people. And this is a conversation that's come up recently in our company. Is we've got a client that we don't like, and but this client gives us a couple $100,000 worth of business a year. So the question becomes, when is it right to do business with someone that you don't like and don't align with? And, what's your opinion about that? Just as a broad pinch. Now, it may not be broad, but how do you feel about that?
I think it's one of the hardest things to do in business. I think going and getting a new customer is actually easier than terminating a current client. Just from my personal opinion, my personal experience. It's hard. It's hard because it's money in the bank, right? Like they show up. I mean, I've had to let go of a client that paid his invoice a week early every month. Right? Like it was guaranteed money,
Yeah,
like
that's what this is. Yeah.
7,500 a month guaranteed, paid early, just had it on auto pay. It was guaranteed. But what I've found is as long as you have a strategy around it and the buy-in from the people that it's affecting, your team will work harder to make that money up and find better clients. I think it starts with your leadership to say, hey, we're doing this for you, right? Like you've said, hey, Pete, you've said that this client treats you like shit on the phone. I don't know what the exact situation is, but ask Pete what Pete would want to do, right? If it's your accounting department and they're a pain in the ass with them for invoices and Dave runs your accounting, like ask Dave, right? Get the buy-in from your company so this decision makes sense for them and you leverage this decision because you support them as an employee. You appreciate the relationship, you appreciate what they've done, and you're willing to walk away from $100,000 because they matter more to you as the leader and the owner of the company than the money does. Right? You have that conversation with them from your heart and truth and ask them what they would do and be honest and vulnerable, right? Like you're the leader, but if you went up to Pete and was like, man, I don't know what to do, Pete, if you own the company, and one of your employees was saying that they're treating them bad or this or that, and you were the owner, like, what would you do? right? Like navigate the conversation with them to create the plan together. And I guarantee you, if they feel heard and seen and important, they're going to go, oh, I have some responsibility. Let's go make that money up.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yeah.
now, and then do it, call a meeting and have Pete tell everybody what's happening, not you. Right. Like have Pete
Yeah. That's a
explain
good
it
idea.
in his words of the conversation you had. Now you're showing yourself as a leader to the group, and you're bringing everybody into a cohesive decision being made. And Pete will probably say, or someone on the team will probably say, all right, we just lost $100,000. How are we going to go make this up? Right. And then,
Yeah.
but have a strategic plan, right? Because you are
Right.
the leader, right? Like say, okay, guys, we're going to do this because it's for the greater good of the benefit of the company. Now we need to work together, right? Like Jim in sales doesn't want Pete in accounting pissed off. So let's work together. How does Jim and
Yeah.
Pete create a plan?
Yeah. It seems to me that, we've had this conversation that the amount of energy it takes to stay in a bad relationship, you took that
Even though
same
the
amount of
sex is good,
energy.
Andrew,
You
you got to get out
do
of that.
what?
Even though the sex is good, you got to get out of that bad
Right.
relationship.
Exactly. So, so I was just wondering, thank you. I appreciate the feedback on that.
Yeah, man. Andrew, number 2. What's up, brother?
Hey, I'll take my camera off. I'm not as pretty in person this morning as I am in my picture.
You're looking good, man. That beard's coming through strong, baby. I like it.
Hey, thank you very much. And yeah, this was great, Jim. You know, uh, John Mediana is the one that introduced me to you, and so I'm very appreciative. I love the stuff. It's very encouraging. And my question was, I kind of stepped out on a little bit of John's prodding, and I've got some meetings with some CEOs specifically. It wasn't, hey, I want to do business with you. It was just, hey, I've now taken on a role as a business owner, and my title is CEO. And I just want to learn, and I genuinely do. But like, I was Googling questions, and you've had a ton of experience. If you were going to pick like your top 1 or 2 questions, if you're sitting in proximity, one of the guys I'm meeting with next week has been CEO of like 8 or 9 different hospitals over the last 30 years, large ones. So I'm like, what do I ask this guy? Because I really do want to get to know him, and I just want to learn.
I think you can take it a couple different ways. Is there anything specific you're seeking to learn from them?
I want to
Like, is
learn
it
how to,
scalability? Is it marketing? Is it,
yeah, I want to learn how to pour into I have a business partner. We also have a COO, a VP of sales, and some other executive roles and leaders. I want to learn as I'm kind of getting to the biggest I've ever grown a company. And so we're starting to get beyond that. So now I want to like, how do I lead these people?
Yeah.
Because I'm beyond what my knowledge base is.
I would start with vulnerability. What you just said to me right there,
Okay.
I would start with that. But more importantly, I would position it not for what you want, but credibility and recognition for him, right? Or her.
Okay.
So if it's
Okay.
hey Danielle, you know, I've seen you've grown so many companies and you've done this,
Yeah.
and make sure they know you've done your homework. Have like their milestones memorized, right?
Yeah.
Like know them. Um, and congratulate them. Like you are such an amazing leader who ran so many companies. Like, what's the most important element to leadership that you found over the last 30 years?
Okay.
Um, you know, I would pour into them because unless they understand the why you're asking and who you are, and I don't know the relationship if you know them well or not, but like take advantage of explaining why you're asking that and coming from your heart, right?
Okay.
Because what you just told me was, I know how to run a business, it's growing. I want to learn so I can be better for my team. Like that tells me of who you are. Just in that
Yeah.
statement, I'm like, Andrew's a good dude, right? Like we don't really know each other, but like Now I want to go have coffee with you and talk about how we can help the world. Right? Because
Yeah.
you just said in that moment, you're not doing it to make money. You're not doing it. You like knowledge. That's the win-win. The win for you is knowledge. The win
Yeah.
on the other way is for them is success and helping them grow.
Yeah.
I would just be you, man. Pour from the heart,
No,
you
no,
know?
that's awesome. I mean, and that's really where I am coming from. I mean, I spent an extra decade. Most of my team is 33, 32, and so I just want to cut the learning curve off so they don't have to go through some of the crap I did and they
Yeah.
can be 10 years ahead on their success. That's really just my goal.
I would share that as well with that
Okay.
person. I want to
Awesome.
speed up their development so they don't have to do it the hard way. They don't have to make the mistakes that I made. I've
Yeah.
got what I'm going to be teaching them, but I'd just like to acquire how you've shown up and made the most impact as a leader in over the last 30 years. Right?
And that's good, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Cool. All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. Like I said, hopefully I'll see you next week. If not, we do have a marketing call tomorrow. That's also free. Andrew just mentioned John Mediana, the chief strategist and chief creative officer for executive brand growth, will be joining us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We're going to talk about marketing strategy and some cool, unique tactics that John's been using and been sharing with me. That call will be in our Circle community. So Gene just dropped the link for tomorrow. If you're not logged in, it's still, our community is still free. It's going to be free all year. And then you can sign up, create a profile, jump in that, and we go live right in the community. This call, I'll do this relationship building because I didn't get through all my material. I'll do a follow-up one of these probably in 2 weeks. So be on the lookout for that. And we can hit part 2 of human connection opportunities for relationships. But yeah, if you got tomorrow free, we'd love to have you join and dive into our community. It's cool. It's on the Circle platform. There's a bunch of resources there. We've got 75 members. You can grab the member directory, see who's in there, grab their emails, connect, navigate. We've got a podcast portal. We've got a ton of cool stuff in there. So thank you all for being here this morning. I really appreciate you. And go make some human connection opportunities. Let's go make some new
Thank you so
relationships.
much, Jim.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Thanks, Jim.